Hello everybody, B-Metal is here. I'm ready, super ready to close 2020. And I want to close with something that I've been doing for a few years, which is a master compilation of year-end lists. So this is gonna be the 2020 best metal albums ranked according to an aggregated list of all the lists that I found on the internet. Always, every year we have this list mania tradition that continues to inflate the internet and magazines around the world in the months of usually November, December, a little bit up to January. And I love those lists. I have compiled and aggregated 22 best of 2020 lists. Those came out in those months by major blogs and magazines. Most of those are metal-focused publications, and a lot of them are from the US and UK, but I tried as much as possible to diversify by including some German, Dutch, Swedish, and Canadian metal publications as well. And in terms of genres, I also tried to include some prog and classic rock focused lists. You can see in the description below and in the screen the 22 publications that were compiled. Now, how did I do that? I took the top 10 of each list and assigned 10 points for number 1, 9 for number 2, and so forth. So obviously number 10th got 1 point. The album had to appear in a minimum of 3 out of the 22 lists to qualify for the aggregated list. There is one exception that I'll talk about later. Before I get into it, I've been doing this for a while, as I mentioned, and my conclusions were that the trend is similar from the last few years, but with one major difference. The similarity is that while individual lists are very diverse, when you start aggregating them, the big names do well and popped up at the top. For 2020, this was obviously AC/DC. And also AC/DC transcends metal, prog, and classic rock lists, so they can grab points from very diverse publications. With that said, 2020 was also, in this case, a different year. Not many big names released albums. That's why AC/DC was one of the only big names popping up here. Then you also have some critics' darlings that always pop up high, such as Deftones and Code Orange. Since many of the lists, as I mentioned, are US, UK focused, they bias this list a little bit towards alt rock, new metal type of music. And finally, the heavier, more underground, newerish bands that everyone seems to include in their list in certain years. In 2020, the chosen ones seem to be Imperial, Triumph, and Anno Natharak. So let's get to the list. The number 1 album of the year was a surprise to me, not because I don't like it, because it was actually my personal number 7, but it's not the type of music that I would see doing so well in so many diverse lists. Maybe it's because it's 2020, a dark, weird year, and at the same time, this album is also quite catchy and very well produced. I'm talking about Paradise Lost. This was by far the favorite album of 2020 when I look at this aggregated list. They collected 69 points, appearing in 9 lists of the 22. They had 3 lists, so that's Slout.de, Metal Hammer Germany, and HeavyMusicHeadquarters.com. And they were also second place in another 3 lists: Sweden Rock Magazine, BraveWords, and Sonic Perspectives. As you can see, many of those that they were topping are European, Canadian publications. No other album was anywhere close to this performance of Paradise Lost. Second place is already a significant drop, and this is Deftones with 49 points, so a 20-point difference to the number 1 Paradise Lost. And they appeared in 6 lists, 2 times as number 1, Revolver and Metal Hammer UK, and 2 times as number 3, Consequences of Sound, and Kerrang. Very close to them was AC/DC, as I mentioned, very high, but with 47 points, so a couple of points below Deftones, and heading 2 lists, Sweden Rock Magazine and Classic Rock Magazine. Other 2 bands also appeared in 6 lists, Code Orange heading 2 lists, Metal Injection and Kerrang, and Imperial Triumphant heading 1 list, Pop Matters. Those 2 bands almost tied for 4th place. So Code Orange had 44 points and Imperial Triumphant 43 points. Number 7 in the aggregated list was the second most frequent album, and this is Catatonia, appearing in 7 lists. However, they collected 31 points only. So on average, they appeared in a lot of lists, but usually not at the very top of those lists. Their best performance was number 3 in 2 lists, BraveWords and the Dutch magazine Aardschok. The opposite happened to Eternal Champion, the number 20, and is the only one that appeared in less than 3 lists, as I mentioned. That's the only exception. But they were very effective when they appeared. They were number 1 in Stereogum and number 2 in the Decibel magazine. Number 10th was Anel Natharak. This was another very effective band. They collected 26 points, but only from 3 lists. They were heading Angry Metal Guy, and they were 3rd place in 2 other lists, Metal Sucks and Metal Injection. Other than AC/DC, 2 no-metal acts made the list, Fish with number 11 and Pearl Jam with number 18. That's because they were really strong in the no-metal lists that I have here. Only 5 albums of the aggregate list did not appear in my personal list that I shared in December. Those were Imperial Triumphant, Fish, Oransi Pazuzu, Pearl Jam, and Eternal Champion. I probably should give Imperial Triumphant and Oransi Pazuzu another try because they seem to be something that I will get into it. But Fish and Eternal Champion, I tried and didn't really appeal to me at all. And Pure Jam, I don't have to try because it's not a band that I like. My number 1, Spirit Adrift, appeared in the 16th place with 14 points and was mentioned in 4 lists. The aggregated number 1, Paradise Lost, was, as I said, my number 7. You can check my personal list video on the link below. So here is the full list, aggregating the 22 lists into one. Number 1, Paradise Lost, Obsidian. Number 2, Deftones with Ohms. Number 3, AC/DC with Power Up. Number 4, Code Orange, Underneath. Number 5, Imperial Triumphant with Alphaville. Number 6, Napalm Death, Thrones of Joy of the Jaws of Defeatism. Catatonia with City Burials, number 7. Testament, Titans of Creation, number 8. Enslave, Utgard, number 9. Number 10, Anel Natharak with Endarkment. Number 11, we have The Fish with, I don't know how to pronounce the name of this album. Number 12, Haken with Virus. 13, Trivium with What the Dead Men Say. The Ocean, number 14, with Phanerozoic, number 2. Number 15, Black Crow Initiate Violent Portraits of Doomscape. Number 16, Spirit Adrift Enlightened in Eternity. Number 17, Oransi Pazuzu with Mastering Kinsey. And number 18, Pure Jam with Gigaton. Number 19, Armored Saint, Punching the Sky. And finally, number 20, Eternal Champion with Ravening Iron. Some runners-up that almost made it were Sepultura, Doe, Passage d'Hiver, Crippled Black Phoenix, and Pallbearer. Now, we definitely close 2020 by 2020 and now focus 100% in 2021. All right, thanks for listening, for joining. Let's see what 21 brings to us, and be mad always.